everyone, and welcome to Rethinking Wellbeing on a Societal Level. This is number 5 in our 7-part series, and we have the most incredible guest today, Dr. David Katz. David, thank you so much for being our guest today. Welcome.
My pleasure, Laura. Thanks so much for having me.
So I always ask my guests where they're coming from. So I know you're coming from Connecticut. Can you tell us specifically where in Connecticut you're coming from?
For those who know the state, Hamden, Connecticut, up near Sleeping Giant State Park, and about 12 miles or so from the Yale University campus.
All right. So Yale University is actually, I almost went there. I chose to go to Stanford instead, but it's a beautiful school. So that's a really nice place to live. So as always, if everyone would share where you're coming from, I know we've got a good group of people coming in. And also, as always, thank you so much to the Global Wellness Institute's Workplace Wellbeing Institute for partnering with us on this 7-part series to really focus on how we can elevate well-being in every workplace and in every team, and also across our nation, which is really what we're going to be talking about today. So Dr. David Katz is a world-renowned expert in lifestyle medicine, nutrition, and preventative health. He has dedicated his career to answering one big question, which is how do we translate science, and I would add to that, accurate science, because there's so much about science and about it being science-based and about it being evidence-based, when so often it's not really. So it's really about having true science and then translating that into systems. He is the founder of Yale's Prevention Research Center, advisor to global initiatives like the Blue Zones, but more importantly, also the founder and CEO of Diet ID, founder of True Health Initiative, and also co-author of How to Eat with Mark Bittman, along with several other books. And also you've published hundreds of articles as well. And you have served as a tireless advocate for using public health, not just personal willpower, something that I believe that we have leaned way too much in our field to really create meaningful change. So welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
So one couple of other things that I wanted to mention about David. David is married to a woman who has a website called Cuisinicity. And AJ, if we can put that into the chat, that would be great. And this is a resource for free recipes. And if you want a little taste of the Katz household, which includes David and his wife and 5 children. And I think that most of your children are grown up now, but
all grown, all out of the house. Had a couple of weddings in the family this year. Yeah, so all launched from the nest.
So today we're going to have a conversation about how we shift the conversation from delivering surface level perks and programs to really creating deeper systemic change. Because arguably all of us as human beings are much more creatures of culture and environment and systems than we are creatures of habit or personal willpower. And so really is how do we more effectively lead the way in creating a system that really prioritizes health, fights against systemic barriers, and creates environments where people can truly thrive. Now, before we begin, David, one of my absolute favorite things about having heard you speak a number of times is that you like to open and close with a little bit of poetry. And I was wondering if you would be willing to open us up with a little bit of poetry.
All righty. Well, we can't go too far wrong with Robert Frost. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep. I think, Laura, about our efforts in public health that way. I've been at this for a long time. My career in medicine and public health spans the better part of 40 years now. And when I started out as a young person believing that I could change the world, I wanted to see the bad curves bend toward the good. I wanted to see declines in global obesity rates and chronic disease rates, less diabetes, less heart disease, more years in life, more life in years. And those trends have not been favorable. We've actually seen increases in the global burden of chronic disease, increases in the global prevalence of obesity among adults and children alike, declines in many cases, partly because of the pandemic, but not just because of the pandemic, in life expectancy in some parts of the world. And all the while, we've been degrading planetary health as well. So when I take stock of my efforts and those of like-minded people, my feeling is we still have promises to keep and miles to go before we sleep. Well, credit to Robert Frost. I just delivering the message.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, David.
Well, thank you.
So, one of the things that you talk about in How to Eat, and for our listeners, or as usual for this series, we've been doing a book raffle. So, if you are interested in being part of the raffle, please write into the chat, "I'm in," and you will receive a copy of Dr. Katz's book, I should say, his book along with Mark Bittman's book, along with a copy of my book, Workplace Wellness That Works. But one of the things that you talked about in that book, both of you talked about, is this idea that you being the scientist and Mark being the chef, that both of you are defenders of sense. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So the process of writing that book was wonderful. Mark's a terrific guy and has a deep knowledge of food systems, and obviously wrote his column in the New York Times on that topic for many years. So political influences on food systems, the history of food production in the United States. He has a terrific book on that topic, Animal Vegetable Junk. If you don't understand how the food supply in the U.S. got to where it is, I highly recommend Mark's book, Animal Vegetable Junk. I learned a lot. When we were working on How to Eat, we sequestered ourselves at his basically farm-based home in upstate New York for a few days. And we just kicked questions back and forth to one another. And we recorded everything we said, had somebody transcribe that. And then we had 7,000 pages and had it edited down to a coffee table book. But one of the things that brought us together, I from science and Mark from looking at politics and food systems and food production, was how easy it was for both of us to see the common truth because we were thinking about sense. The weight of evidence clearly points in the direction of, as Michael Pollan put it, eat food, not too much, mostly plants, a 7-word answer to all of the questions about how humans should eat for better health and better for the planet into the bargain. And we thought really so much of the confusion is because people are asking the wrong questions or chasing the new or going after rogue theories or being distracted by fads and false promises. And if you think about where diet works the best in the world, and arguably that would be places like the blue zones where people routinely live to be 100, don't get chronic disease. Nobody is waiting to hear what the new diet of the week is. Nobody's tuning into the Today Show or Good Morning America to find out how they should eat. They eat the way they've always eaten, the way their parents ate before them, the way their grandparents ate before them. So it's multi-generational. It's rooted in culture and heritage. It stood the test of time. That's sense. That's not science. That's not a massive randomized controlled trial or a meta-analysis. But science and sense do not work well. Neither works well when they part company. So I tend to argue that science is the greatest invention of human ingenuity to pursue otherwise elusive answers with the force of a freight train. But sense lays the tracks. And so if you try to use science without the sense of asking good questions in the first place, sensibly interpreting the science that's available, what you wind up with is a train wreck. Science doesn't fix that problem independent of sense. So Mark and I emphasized sense. One other thing of importance, I think we both agreed, if we had to pick one word to characterize what's most important about diet, what's most broken about diet, what's best about diet, what's most important about diet, be one word, and it's not sugar, and it's not salt, and it's not fat, and it's not some nutrient, and it's not some fat. It's balance.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about feeding any species, what really matters is that the dietary pattern accord with the native adaptations of that species. That's why wildebeest need to eat grass and lions need to eat wildebeest. It's the nature of their anatomy, their physiology, their fundamental adaptations. When you move toward balance in response to those adaptations, you move toward health. When you move away from balance, you move away from health. So that would be the one word that we would pick. And that too is a sensible rather than a provocative interpretation of the available science on diet and health.
And it's what we're born to do. We're born to eat a balanced, sensible diet.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We obviously have a vast amount of science about human nutriture and optimal nutrition, and it's both for the good and the bad. We have so much that you can lose yourself in it and sort of, you know, cherry pick the literature and come away with any answer you like. But for every other species, we have vastly less science, and yet at a zoo, zookeepers know what to feed everybody. You know, to the best of my knowledge, I have some friends who work at zoos. No randomized trials. You know, they haven't randomized the otters to try eating eucalyptus leaves or grass or wildebeest steaks, or you know, they just let the otters eat what otters eat, and lions eat what lions eat, and zebras eat what zebras eat, and so forth. So we respect across the vast expanse of biodiversity the profound importance of native adaptation. Now, with humans, it's a little complicated because since the dawn of civilization, arguably about 15,000 years ago in Mesopotamia, we've been so radically altering our native environment, it's hard to figure out exactly what it is. But there is a rich literature on paleoanthropology telling us a lot about our native diet. We understand it well enough. So even if we had no randomized control trials and meta-analyses and systematic reviews and all that, we should be able to answer the question, what are the fundamental truths about feeding Homo sapiens well? And we can. But in addition to that, we have reams of randomized control trials and meta-analyses and systematic reviews and so forth. And that should not undo the knowledge we would have had without them. That should enhance it. And when it fails to enhance what we already knew, it's because we're not using the science sensibly. But when we put those two things together sensibly, we wind up with perfect clarity about the fundamental theme of feeding humans well. And again, as Michael Pollan put it, it's hard to improve on this. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. The one thing I would say is you don't really need the not too much, because when you actually eat wholesome, whole plant foods as the bulk of your diet, vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, lentils, nuts, and seeds, and you mostly drink water when thirsty, the not too much takes care of itself. One of the many virtues of wholesome foods is that they fill you up on many fewer calories. One of the popular preoccupations about diet these days, Lauren, and feel free to stop me at any time if you want to ask a different question, is the focus on ultra-processed food. And that has become more salient courtesy of the work of Carlos Monteiro and colleagues. Professor Monteiro is at the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil. He led the team that developed the NOVA classification, which gave us an operational definition of ultra-processed food. Up until then, we all called it junk food. And the problem with calling it junk food was it was the sort of thing, yeah, you can't define it, but you know it when you see it. Well, if you can't define it, you know, then you can't study it. Professor Monteiro and colleagues gave us an operational definition that allowed it to be studied. And then there was an explosion in papers on ultra-processed food. And I don't think a day goes by when it's not in the media now. We're hearing about it all the time. That's a good thing because it's an important topic. And probably too big a topic for us to do much with, except to say that most ultra-processed food is bad, not all. And most ultra-processed food is bad because of intention. The food industry designs food we can't stop eating until our arm gets tired from lifting it to our mouths. It's on purpose. It's engineered. If you want to know more about that, I highly recommend a New York Times Magazine cover story by Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Moss entitled The Extraordinary Science of Addictive Junk Food. The title pretty much is the whole story right there, but read that and you'll know what I'm talking about. But the
Yeah,
beauty of wholesome foods,
and if I
whole
can add
plant
to
foods,
that, Michael Moss's has written a couple of books on this.
2 books.
Also, Julia Bellous and Kevin Hall just came out, just released a book called Food Intelligence, which I think you have right there.
They did
And
indeed. Yeah, yeah. It's terrific. Yeah. So the 2 books by Michael Moss that I'd recommend: Salt, Sugar, Fat, and Hooked. But if you want an easy start to all of this, The Extraordinary Science of Addictive Junk Food, just go to Google, type in Moss addictive, you'll pull it right up. But yeah, those are all terrific. And yeah, I love Kevin. So Kevin, obviously, until recently at the NIH, he left that position because of some of the mayhem in the federal government and how they're dealing with science. Another long story we don't have time to get into. But Kevin's done the metabolic ward studies of ultra processed foods, shown that just ultra processing, independent of macronutrient distribution and other considerations, leads to overeating. And again, that's by design. The food industry gives scientists marching orders to design food people can't stop eating. What I was saying is, if you really do eat wholesome, whole foods, mostly plants, you reverse engineer what we could call the Moss effect or the Hall effect. Those foods fill you up on fewer calories. So calories do count, but you don't want to spend your life counting them. And if you eat wholesome food, you don't have to. The not too much takes care of itself.
I love that. So I want to make sure we've got a lot of listeners coming in. I want to make sure that we get some of these questions here. So question being, whole food, plant-based diet movement has been ongoing for years. What do you see as the biggest challenge as to why it's not more widespread, or what would be your one recommendation that would have perhaps the biggest impact on us?
Well, the reason it's not more widespread is largely disinformation, industry coordinated propaganda. So, as a quick, for instance, the Eat Lancet report, which is all about the planetary health diet, looking to optimize dietary patterns for the health of both people and planet, has just come out. Eat Lancet 2.0. And every time Eat Lancet releases an update, there is a coordinated propaganda campaign against it, undermines how crucial it is for people to eat meat and how it will harm people around the world who are not getting enough protein and so forth. And the evidence clearly leads to the beef industry and the dairy industry coordinating these efforts. So propaganda, disinformation, the same confusion we have about everything these days, right? I mean, we're worried about the contributions of AI to the confusion that was already sown by social media and modern age propaganda. So that's a huge part of the problem. We have to overcome all of that. And then the other thing is inertia. People used to eating a lot of animal foods or ultra processed foods would have to make changes to adopt a plant-based diet. Now, could they do that? Sure. Could they learn to love that food that loves them and the planet back? Absolutely. It just takes a little bit of time. I call that taste bud rehab. We learn to love the foods we're with. But if they never climb that little hill in the first place, then it's basically just, it's a bridge too far. They never try, they never get there. So we need some sort of coordinated societal effort to encourage people to make that transition, to make sure people understand the rewards, better health for a lifetime. And no, you won't like the food any less. This is not trading off good health and good food. You can enjoy the food just as much as you ever did and enjoy good health because your taste buds learn to prefer more wholesome food and all of that. And the one thing that I would recommend is to elevate the value proposition of shifting to plant-based food to help people understand we're talking about empowering greater vitality, right? So this is not, oh, woe is me, I have to eat more Brussels sprouts. This is a vast array of fruits and vegetables and grains and legumes to choose from across a vast expanse of the world's wonderful cuisines. You truly can love food that loves you and the planet back. And you will contribute to a lifetime of vitality for yourself and everybody who eats with you, your household, your family, the people you love most in the world. It's the greatest of gifts. Vitality is the gift that keeps on giving. I don't think we fully appreciate the value proposition. I don't think people fully understand the opportunity to combine good food and good health. We have to do a better job of, if you will, selling that message.
So One of the things, we got a lot of wellness leaders, well-being leaders who are on listening in right now. And I'm seeing, for example, Elizabeth is writing here, love taste bud rehab. I love that as well. And we do have a question coming in here from Jessica Grossmeyer. But before we get to that question, I just want to talk a little bit about how we talk a lot about how there's a healthcare crisis, but I believe there's also a wellness crisis. That very industry, that fast growing industry that's now over a $6 trillion industry worldwide, that was supposed to keep us from entering the healthcare system in the first place, is clearly failing us. Why is that? That there seems to be almost an inverse relationship between the growth in the wellness industry and our actual health and well-being?
Well, first of all, we don't have a healthcare system, right? We have a disease care system. So I'm board certified in preventive medicine. That's unusual. I'm an internist and a preventive medicine specialist. And in prevention, we're thinking about getting ahead of the problem and preempting it. But most of medicine waits for the problem and then treats it. That's what we're taught to do. That's what we're supposed to do. But we call that a healthcare system, and it's really not. There's almost nothing that goes on in mainstream medicine that's about building vitality from its origins. We treat diseases, we fix broken bones, we operate and remove diseased organs and do that sort of thing. But it's not about building vitality. The wellness industry was supposed to do that, but because that took root in parts of the system that in many instances are quite displaced from science, think Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop, we're really talking about potentially useless, futile ventures that are all very superficial and shiny and alluring, but predicated on false promises. That's not really where wellness resides. The fundamentals of achieving wellness are rooted in lifestyle. I sum them up as feet, forks, fingers, sleep, stress, and love. So feet, physical activity; forks, dietary patterns; fingers, never do this, don't bring toxins to your lips, tobacco, excess alcohol, other drugs; sleep, we need enough; stress, we need to avoid too much; and love, we need good, healthy social connections. No man, no woman, no person is an island. We need one another. We're social animals. Feet, forks, fingers, sleep, stress, and love. And the American College of Lifestyle Medicine has those same 6 pillars. They just call them by different names, but you get the idea. Those are the fundamentals. The one thing to note about that, though, is that even causes have causes. And so if we think of those lifestyle behaviors as choices that we make, we have to remind ourselves that the choices we make are subordinate to the choices we have. And let's look at the choices we have. America runs on Dunkin'. Coca-Cola is the national hydration beverage. Multicolored marshmallows in a cereal box are part of every child's complete breakfast. Everything about our system conspires against healthy eating. Everything about our society conspires against daily physical activity. Everything about our society and culture conspire against the management of stress, healthy social interactions. Social media is now undermining further those healthy social interactions, and on it goes. It is the full mass of modern cultural momentum that conspires against our health. Goop is not going to fix that. So if we're going to reverse engineer that, first of all, we need high level thinking about what is everything that stands between us and the blessings of the blue zones. What if everybody in America, and for that matter the world, deserves the opportunity to live long, prosper with vitality, and then go gentle into that good night in the fullness of time? Because that's what happens in the blue zones. People live to be 100 years old. They don't succumb to chronic disease or dementia. They die peacefully in their sleep at 103. If that's achievable in those 5 diverse populations around the world, it's achievable everywhere. We should be asking all the time, what's in the way? But we should be answering the question with diligent science, not commercialism, not, hey, what can I sell these people? That's what our wellness industry is for the most part. There are good actors as well as bad. There are obviously very valuable efforts in that space, but all too much of it is, what can I talk people into? What can I sell them, and how can I maximize my profit margin? That's not what fundamentals are about.
That's right. And I would add to that the wellness industry has, to a fault, focused too much on the individual's mindset, the individual's habits, the individual's choices and priorities, And I think that this line that you said, the choices that we make are subordinate to the choices that we have. And to be clear, that it's not that those people living in the blue zones are that much more motivated than the rest of us, or that much more well educated than the rest of us. It's just that they happen to have been lucky enough to have been born
Exactly.
into a blue zone, and we become the environment that we are in, for better or for worse.
I completely agree, and absolutely, there's no evidence of greater personal discipline or responsibility in the blue zones. It's mediated by culture. Just quick comments. I know we're going to run short on time very quickly, but I would note that while relying on willpower is ill-advised, relying on skill power is not. So what I told my patients for 30 years is, look, this should be a cultural fix. We need a cultural revolution. America should stop running on Dunkin' and stop using Coca-Cola as the national hydration beverage. And no, multicolored marshmallows should not be part of every child's complete breakfast, and on and on and on and on and on. But you can't wait for that to happen, because your health belongs to you. And so what can you do in the meantime? Well, think of this like drowning. And yes, we want lifeguards at beaches and fences around pools and, all the societal protection against drowning, but you can learn how to swim. So let's do swimming lessons right now. Let's talk about the skill set that people can have, and some people do have. I have, you have, Laura, to navigate through the challenges of being healthy in spite of it all. Let me help teach you that. Let's look for resources. And then you just need to commit to learning that the way you learned the alphabet, and to do algebra, and to ride a bike. It took effort in the beginning, but then it was a valuable skill for the rest of your life. It was worth it. Well, like the alphabet and riding a bike, this will so be worth it. So let's work on that. So I work with my patients on skill power. I completely agree with you. It's not an alternative to fixing this at the system level. But no one of us has enough control over the system. All we can do is be a small part of the communal revolution. But as an individual, we can increase our skill level. And of course, if enough of us do that, it starts to add up to become the revolution we want to see.
I love that idea of shifting from willpower to skill power, and understanding that while we need that cultural revolution, we also need to be taking action in the meantime. So we have so many questions and comments that have come in, and I'm curious, David, if you might be willing to respond to some of these questions after the fact. We have a newsletter that goes out, because I want to make sure that that those questions don't go unanswered. But we are coming up at the end of our time, and I want to make sure that we do the book draw. So Alana, if you wouldn't mind doing the book draw. And so Shauna, congratulations. You will be receiving 2 books in the mail, How to Eat and also Workplace Wellness That Works. Congratulations to you on that. David, if you wouldn't mind wrapping us up with the 3 top takeaways for our listeners.
Well, I would reiterate that making good choices is critically important, and that is on you. But the choices you have are not on you. And if it's really hard to make good choices, be kind to yourself, be forgiving of yourself, do the best you can. Don't focus preferentially just on willpower. We can only ask so much there. If you are struggling to do the healthy thing, tap into skill power. Find out what do I need to know to eat better, fit more activity into my daily routine, take better care of my stress, my sleep, and so forth. Those are skills. They can be acquired, right? Some people learn how to fly a plane. We can learn how to fly our lives healthfully through this crazy landscape of ours. And finally, we don't talk enough about what health is for. You are the boss. I'm not the boss. Nobody else is the boss. It's your life. You're the boss. And the reason health matters is not because some doctor wags an admonishing finger. It's because healthy people have more fun. I think we often fail to tap into the true value proposition of health. Healthy people, other things being equal, have better lives. You can do more of whatever it is you like to do.
And I think that's a perfect segue to reminding our listeners about our next guest we have, which is Dr. Carrie Burnite, who is the author of Joy Span. So we'll be talking about Joy Span as opposed to just lifespan, taking a fresh take on longevity. She will be joining us on November 12th, 9 to 9:30 Pacific time again. So I hope that you all can join us for that. And Dr. David Katz, in our final 30 seconds, Oh, actually, I want to make sure that our listeners know how to follow your work. So please go to drdavidkatz.com. And I know AJ will have put all of these in there. We also have the truehealthinitiative.org and then dietid.com. Also, be sure to check out Cuisinicity.com. Is that correct, or is it .org?
.com.
Okay, great. And then if you want to just leave us with one final beautiful poetry line, that would be a perfect way to wrap us up.
Very nice. All right, let's close with Emily Dickinson. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me. In these challenging times, let's land on hope and hope it finds us and perches on a twig near us soon.
Perfect way to close us up. Dr. David Katz, thank you so much for being our guest today, for really helping us to rethink well-being on a societal level. I think that line, choices we make are subordinate to the choices that we have, is the one that's really going to stay with me. And also the idea of shifting from willpower to skill power, that there is something that each of us can do in the face of that. I want to, of course, thank all of our guests for joining us today. We'll look forward to seeing you next month. And again, thank you so much, David.
My pleasure. Thank you. Be well, everyone.